Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast.
A very warm welcome to the latest edition of the PharmaSource podcast, and today a CDMO strategy teardown. And our guest today, Arul Ramadurai, the Chief Commercial Officer at Axplora. Arul, a very warm welcome to the podcast. We're looking forward to the conversation today.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's a pleasure to be on here, and hello, everyone.
Let's start with a bit of introduction. Arul, having joined Axplora as Chief Commercial Officer in 2022, what strategic vision have you and are you bringing to the company?
I love the word strategic teardown, by the way. I think that's a great way of starting things off. So I joined this company, as you mentioned, 3 years ago. I've been in the pharma space for around 20 years. Worked for many of our customers now, frankly speaking, in companies like Novartis, Vexalta Shire. And I joined this space here really to bring this customer perspective, right? So when I came to the company in 2022, I'd known some of the management team here. I'd known that this was a merger between three companies, Farmabios, PharmaZell, and Novasep. And the idea really was, how can we serve customers at a completely different level going forward? And that was kind of the mission that I was brought in for. And in what we've seen in the last 3 years is, we're motoring along on that vision. In the CDMO business, we're really looking to make a difference. We want to stand out. We're a European CDMO, of course, but really what we want to say is we want to provide the best service possible to our customers. And coming from the customer background, it just gives me the chance to work with a set of people who fundamentally have a very strong technological background, but combined with this customer expertise now are able to provide a different level of service.
That's great. Thank you. Give us a little bit more industry context. How has the CDMO landscape evolved recently, in your view? And what fundamental shifts are you seeing in how pharma companies approach their manufacturing partnerships?
I think what you're seeing in the CDMO space in the last few years has been quite a positive development, right? So you had COVID that dominated the headlines and was for our industry an opportunity to demonstrate that we can turn things around and we can do things with a different kind of agility, and that's exactly what we did. So the industry reacted very quickly to the new therapies that needed to be supplied, at great speed, with a high level of reliability, and I think we managed to do that really well. In this period during COVID, of course, there was also a lot of investment going into the manufacturing space, and CDMOs profited from that. What we're seeing since then is, sure, there are still investments going in, but it's much more tailored now. It's much more down to specific subsectors, specific products. And what that means, of course, is now you have a lot more players in the market, but only, frankly speaking, some of them are going to be able to really make the difference. And that's where Axplora is one of these places where I think we're well on the journey to doing that.
You just touched on briefly on the point around investment. Let's focus a bit more there. Axplora recently announced significant investments in advanced manufacturing technologies for complex API, including a recent €50 million investment in France for GLP-1 manufacturing. What specific capabilities are you building, and what's driving the geographical expansion strategy?
Yeah, so I think, Axplora has actually quite a simple investment philosophy, I would say, which is we invest to meet the needs of the customer. So when we look at, what's going on, in the space, if you look at certain advanced technologies, like you say, like ADCs, or even in the GLP-1 space, we've made 2 announcements now in the last few weeks. What's driving these investments are really the customer partnerships that we're building to make these happen. And what does that mean? We have certain expertise that we come from. So, for example, purification and chromatography is the origins of the Novasep business. And that helps us at Axplora to position ourselves as a leader in this space. There's a degree of experience in chromatography that very few CDMOs have. And what that's meant is with all the GLP-1 peptides coming on stream, that expertise is valued by customers. And what that's meant is that we're working closely with them in different parts of the world. So in all three geographies, whether that's North America, Europe, or Asia, we're working with customers in all three geographies to really come up with solutions for capacity needs in the coming years. So what we've done is we've announced expansions, of course, in our site in Morenx in the southwest of France, but also we've added a new workshop for ADCs in close to Paris in Le Mans, and we continue to invest in our site in Germany as well in Leverkusen. So we essentially have multiple investments that are going on currently, but they're all tailored to meet the needs of customers who are seeking advanced solutions.
And with this rapid expansion, how are you ensuring consistent quality, operational excellence across all of your sites? And what are the metrics that you're using to measure the success and effectiveness of these investments?
Yeah, so I think what's very important in this space, I mean, if you think about where does our end product go to, in the end of the day, it goes to patients, which means that we need to always demonstrate the highest levels of quality and integrity in everything that we do. So that's the name of the business. We need to be when we talk about supply reliability, what that means for us is, we just cannot afford to get it wrong. When it goes to a patient, it's got to be right. And what does that mean? That means our quality systems need to demonstrate robustness. And that's something that we've built over the years within the company. And, we have quality systems in place for all our sites, which are unified in terms of our philosophy. And that enables us, of course, to meet the supply reliability that customers are looking for. The other pieces that we need to also make sure is speed. So speed is a very important one because we need to make sure that we're able to meet the timelines for all these new molecules that are coming onto market. And so that's another crucial part of what we do. We are there to make sure we meet the needs of our customers so that they can supply their patients on time.
Understood. Now, lots of growth recently in areas like GLP-1, obviously continuing demand for ADCs. Which emerging drug modalities do you believe will really drive significant growth for CDMOs going forward? And how is Axplora positioning itself for that?
If you just pick up those two that you mentioned, Chris. So GLP-1s, they come in different shapes and sizes. So we have, of course, GLP-1 molecules that are peptides, and these GLP-1s are often requiring large amounts of capacity for APIs, but also large amounts of purification capacity. And that's again where we play quite well because of our history in chromatography, the fact that we have got more than 30 years of experience there. We've probably got more chromatography systems than any other player in the world. And therefore, that gives us a certain credibility and a certain experience that we're able to rely on as we continue to expand. Yeah. So when it comes to the GLP-1 peptides, and the purification, that is certainly a focus area. The other part of GLP-1s are also, of course, the small molecules, and quite often they are quite complex molecules. There's a lot of chemistry involved. And of course, Axplora is coming from a background, from a long history in chemistry, and industrial chemistry, of course, is what we're talking about. There's several tons of product that's needed quite often for these oral GLP-1s. And there again, we're able to play. We have 3 sites that have large workshops, and we're able to provide the necessary R&D, project management, industrialization capabilities and capacities to meet that demand. So I think in terms of GLP-1s, I anticipate both areas to continue to grow quite significantly in the coming years. And Axplora is well positioned because of the history of the company, the mindset that we have now, the fact that we're very much focused on speed, efficiency, and supply reliability. I think that puts us in a good space for that. Now, the other area that you mentioned, Chris, is ADCs. ADCs, of course, is an area that again, we have a long history. We started in the space more than 20 years ago. of the 12 molecules that are FDA approved, the commercial molecules, we supply 6 of them. So we have quite a bit of experience again in this space over the years. We know what it takes to get a molecule to the clinic and through the clinic, and that's where we're able to partner with our customers to deliver what they're looking for. Now, the ADC space has been hot now for the last couple of years, and we anticipate many more molecules coming to the market. And of course, there again, with our background, our capabilities in highly potent compounds, we're able to partner with pharma companies and biotechs to deliver what they're looking for.
Arul, you talked about the importance of speed and efficiency in servicing your clients. Where do you see the most significant manufacturing bottlenecks within the industry, and how do you feel evolving regulatory requirements are influencing your strategic decisions in that area?
So I think in this space, clearly, what we've seen in the last year, especially, some of the bigger players in particular have struggled for capacity, right? So there's been some challenges in the drug product space. There's some challenges in the drug substance space. Of course, as Axplora, we're playing very much in the drug substance space. That's where we play. And I think what we see in terms of bottlenecks are certainly in terms of the peptide synthesis. There's some bottlenecks out there. Also, the purification, we see that. But I think what probably is most important in this space is to acknowledge and recognize that expertise plays a large role. And probably the biggest bottleneck that's out there is actually in expertise, having the necessary skills and experience, to have to really bring these molecules to market. It takes a different level of years, if you like. So you basically should have spent a number of years understanding, playing with these peptides, playing with these ADCs, so that you're able to quickly react. So again, coming back to the speed piece, if you're able to quickly react, then you're able to deliver these quantities in record time. So we've had experiences in the past where we've had something transferred to us, and within 6 months, we've been able to deliver commercial quantities. So, we're only able to do that if we have the necessary expertise. So, going back to your bottleneck question, I think the expertise is one of the areas which can make a real difference. And our expertise in industrial chemistry, industrial chromatography, and ADCs sets us apart.
From a client perspective, Arul, what are the most critical challenges facing pharma companies regarding their manufacturing strategies today, and what makes Axplora's approach distinct in addressing some of these?
Yeah, so I mentioned the 3 things that I think most companies, whether you're a pharma company or a biotech, anyone who's supplying drugs is really focused on, right? So supply reliability, speed, and efficiency. I think these things are critical to success. I think what you find nowadays is the number of choices that customers have. So if you think about whether you're a pharma company or a biotech, you're probably thinking, okay, where do I go? Do I go in European geography, Asian geography, North American geography? So geography is one topic. Where do I get the right expertise? Where, how can I make sure that I'm getting the supply reliability that almost all CDMOs talk about? And I think this is where we're able to go a step further and say, and this is one of the things that we've been pushing in the last couple of years. We want to also be easy to do business with, right? So how can we make the entire process of onboarding us easier? How can we make sure that we can bring you as a customer value sooner? When we talk about these 6 months that we were able to do it, why did we get there? It was because we were able to put all the agreements that are needed to make this happen in record time. We've signed master agreements in a matter of weeks with larger companies. And all of these things are only possible if you take a pragmatic approach and really have this intense focus on the customer. I think focusing on the customer, making sure that we are easy to work with is important, because, if you think about it, especially a big pharma company, there might be a level of complexity there, and we don't need to add to that. We need to try and subtract from that. We need to make it easier to work for them to work with us.
Absolutely. And one of the areas that I find fascinating when talking to CDMOs is about the different challenges, perhaps, in dealing on one hand with a large scale pharma company, and the next moment with obviously an emerging biotech. How do you tailor Axplora's approach? It's surely very different, right?
It is, absolutely. I mean, this is a great question, Chris. So I think, if you look back at our experience, we work today with 8 of the top 10 pharma companies in the world. We worked with, 100 plus biotechs. So, and there are different types of biotechs, of course, as well. You have larger biotechs, smaller biotechs, more recently founded biotechs. So, there's a distinction to be made there as well. I think what's important is, and this is what we've found, it's important to listen very carefully to the customer's needs. So when you think about a large pharma, they might have multiple people that are able to work with you, engage with you. That may not be the case for a small biotech. So that being the reality, it's important to tailor our message to the needs of the customer. So when we have a large pharma, they might be requiring a level of detail. They might have a set of processes that they need to follow that we need to kind of go into lockstep with. Whereas for a small biotech, that might be, it's no less robust. They may be equally robust, but it's just a different level of complexity that you're dealing with, especially if it's a lesser number of people. So I think it's important from our side, and this is one of the things that we're really pushing in the organization is, listen very carefully to what it takes to be successful for the customer. Once you understand what success looks like for every individual customer, I think then it becomes much easier to tailor the message, to partner in a way that works for the customer, and then you're in a good place. I mean, these things are never, something that you say, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is how it's going to happen. But I think having that mindset at the start to say, look, I'm going to tailor to the person, what persons as needed, helps us in terms of making sure that partnership is genuinely put in place, and then we can work together. And there are times, let's be honest, where it's perhaps not optimal, but that's okay. You can then, as long as you have a continuous improvement mindset, you're willing to work at it. I think it's very much possible. That's what we've found, to form strong bonds, open relationships, and therefore good partnerships.
Focusing a bit more about things going forward, digital transformation, sustainability, both important themes. How is Axplora embracing digital technologies and data analytics to enhance manufacturing operations? That's the first part of the question. The second part, a little bit different, but what sustainability initiatives are you implementing?
Yeah, look, both of these are very important questions, and I think features that we hear all the time from our clients, right? These are areas that they want to see. I think when it comes to digital technologies, I think the area where we see already quite some traction is in continuous improvement. So if you think about, where we start off, if we take a process from a customer and we work with that process, try and bring to the first manufacturing a robust, well thought through, well tried out process. What we then do over a period of time, it could be months, years, is obviously try and make sure that we are increasing the yield, increasing the productivity, and we're able to do that using digital technologies, right? So we're able to look at data, see what's happening on our various sites, on our various workshops, and over time, sometimes with minor improvements, sometimes with major improvements, we're able to deliver, increases in yields of 6. I think the average for a lot of our customers has been around 6-7% increases in yields over the last few years, and that's really been helped by digitization. That's made us a lot more proactive in terms of how we how we're able to deal with some of these challenges. And then the other side of the question, of course, which was sustainability. This is something we hear all the time, and this is an area which is core to what we do as an organization. On our executive committee, we have a person who's responsible for sustainability. That is an area that we take very seriously. Each of our sites are measured. We are, of course, rated by EcoVadis as well, and have all the certifications up to gold. So it's an area that we think is very important, not just because our customers say that it's important. We genuinely believe this is the future of manufacturing for us, and therefore we're very committed to a sustainable path.
Arul, when we talked earlier a little bit about bottlenecks within the manufacturing process, you kind of mentioned that people's skill sets were a part of that. What's the approach within Axplora to attracting and retaining the expertise needed in an ever-changing and competitive sector? And very importantly, I think, is how do you balance investing in cutting-edge capabilities versus perfecting processes that are already been in place, very established, etc.? How does that work?
Yeah, so I think talent is always one of those things where if you don't have a very clear focus and a clear agenda, I think it's difficult to really make a difference today. When I talk about being easy to work with, it's important that we have the right skills, the right people that can make that happen. That just doesn't happen just because, I turn around and say we're going to be easy to work with. No, it takes quite a bit of effort. And what we've seen in our business when it comes to talent, we have established processes and established skill sets, and we need to value them. Those are things that we prize in a lot of our individuals, and we continue to help them build their skill sets over time as we take on newer technologies or newer developments. That's something we need to do. For that, of course, you need a certain level of curiosity, and that's one of the most important skills we look for when we bring people on board, right? So that's the first thing. So it's important to take care of our people and make sure that they grow over time in a way that's congruent with our values and the values of our clients. Now, the second part of it, of course, is sometimes you're just not able to get the skills quick enough. And then you have to try and get those skills from outside the organization. And that's where, like you say, you're into this competitive space, Chris, and we need to really find a methodology, a way that works for us. What we've found effective has been really to be known in the regions, in the areas where we're located, right? So we're in France, we're in Germany, we're in Italy, we're in India, and we're involved very much in the local communities. So that means right from the schools through the universities and beyond, we have various activities that we constantly do to engage and to show people and to get people excited about what we do. And I think that helps. And this is something we've been doing for a number of years, which we're building on further now, is to say, okay, as long as people are aware of what we're doing and we keep them on our radar in the pipeline, then when it comes to getting the right people, we're in a position to act quite quickly. And that's exactly what happened, for example, during COVID times. It's publicly known that we were manufacturing Paxlovid, the COVID antiviral. And for that, we needed to recruit the right type of people, and we could do that in a very short space of time. Similarly, with our ADCs, the growth in ADCs has meant we've had to recruit several different skill sets. And again, thanks to this collaboration we've had with the community for a very long period of time, that's just made it a lot easier to bring those people on board.
I love the point about keeping the community close so that when you need to move quickly, you can do so. If we were to have this conversation again in 3 years' time, what major changes do you think we would be discussing within the CDMO landscape by then?
I think it's a good question. I think there's definitely this push towards greater specialization. So, we will certainly be seeing, we talked about GLP-1s, ADCs. There'll be other technologies. I mean, we hear a lot about radiotherapies at the moment. So CDMOs might start getting themselves involved in in some of that. So I think there could be various technology-based developments. But I suspect if you look at what's happening in the world nowadays, very likely there's going to be some geographical changes in terms of the location of where drug substances and drug products are manufactured. And that presents an opportunity, especially for someone like us in a European setting. I think we need to make sure that we demonstrate the best parts of us, so to say, so that we can serve our customers in all three geographies. I think in 3 years' time, what I would say is there's likely to be further consolidation of CDMOs. So I think we've had a lot of CDMOs that have come in over time. I think there's likely to be further activity in terms of ownership, and I think those CDMOs that are invested in the so-called right areas are going to thrive, and I think the others will probably have to find a space which is probably a lot narrower. That's my expectation.
What advice would you give to pharmaceutical and biotech executives who are reassessing their manufacturing strategies in today's highly complex environment?
I don't know if I can give advice, but what I can certainly talk about is what I think is important in the space when we look at when you look at the landscape. There are certain areas where clearly there is significant growth. I think it's important as a pharma and biotech executive to always keep in mind, the three things that I talked about, supply reliability, speed, and efficiency. This is what's important. This is how we win for our customers. This is how we win for our patients. So I think keeping that in mind, what we should be doing in Axplora, we're of course doing that, is looking at, is our manufacturing footprint matching the needs of the future on the one hand? And if it's not, how do we make sure that we get there as soon as possible? I think that's probably the biggest thing that we as the pharmaceutical industry in the CDMO space need to think about. And I think as long as we're then able to act accordingly, to be able then to move quickly, again, I come back to the speed part. We need, I believe, as an industry, to be quick to react and act based on the needs of the market. So that's probably the area that we should always be focused.
And then 2 quick fire questions just to conclude. First one, what's the most underrated skill for a CDMO executive?
I would say entrepreneurial freedom. I think we're able to really move very quickly with the right mindset. If we're able to, if we know what's coming, we can act very quickly, and we're not burdened so much by bureaucracy.
Excellent. And then the final question, the most common misconception biotech and pharma companies may have about the CDMO business model.
Yeah, I think it's possible that there's a perception that CDMOs are all about getting as many projects as possible. Let's fill our capacity. Let's bring more volume in. I think that is a misconception, because I think what's important is, if we want to have a sustainable business, it's important to have the right projects that fit the right capacity and the right capabilities. And I think that's where CDMOs can really add value. We're able to work with our pharma and biotech partners to come up with solutions that are tailored and are really a fit for the customer, and in the end of the day, therefore, getting much needed drugs to their patients.
Arul, it's been a real pleasure talking with you today. Thank you very much for your insights and your time, of course. Thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Chris.